Hello and welcome back to the Blackburn End Podcast. Our popular Behind Enemy Lines feature is back, and as you will see, I have a guest here to join me. If you want to introduce yourself and where we can find your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, nice to be here, Mark. That's really catchy intro music you've got going on there. So my name is Andy, and I'm representing the PO Forecast. So yeah, Pompey, as you probably guessed, as you're playing us this weekend. And yeah, if anyone wants to listen to our match preview and then our review of a famous win against Blackburn Rovers, I mean, Mark's guesting with us for the preview. So you can get double the content with very little extra effort and two of the same people. So yeah, do come and have a listen.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Andy. A famous win. I'm not sure it'd be a famous win, but yeah.
I'm not sure either of those things is that accurate, but we'll see.
Well, I didn't want to say that, but yeah. Okay, so Andy, just in terms of this might not have been the most enjoyable bit for you, but in terms of a summary of your season so far, if you want to just give us a flavour of what's been going on down there.
It's been interesting, I'll tell you that. So yeah, we started the season with one fit centre-back who was our fourth choice centre-back in League One, with him lining up at centre-back alongside a right-back. So it was an interesting start to the season in terms of available players. And it's weird when you look at the results because we actually got some pretty good results at the start of the season. You know, we started the season with a point away at Leeds. We got a point against Middlesbrough, a point against Luton, which at the time, the Luton result, we thought was an excellent result as well. And, you know, we got the first six that we saw really difficult games out of the way where we had those three teams, Sunderland, West Brom and Burnley. And then we thought, there's some nice winnable games now after this. We've got some of the big hitters out the way. And then we proceeded to get absolutely demolished by Stoke. We lost to Cardiff and Sheffield Wednesday. So those nice winnable games didn't quite go as planned. Having said that, there's been a couple of good results in there. I mean, the win at QPR, honestly, QPR looked pretty ordinary, to be frank. And beating Preston last time out, again, they were very, very ordinary. So, yeah, I'd say the league position probably doesn't quite represent performances. I'm not saying that we should be any higher than sort of 17th, 18th at the moment, but I think league position probably doesn't represent quite how they've played at times. I think if games were something like 65 minutes long, we'd be like 12th in the table or something silly. We're just not great in the last 25 minutes, and it's cost us a lot of points.
Right. So just expanding on that a little bit. So going into the season, what sort of hopes and expectations did you have really? And then how are they comparing? You know, what is it that you think? I'm guessing you were hoping and expecting a little bit more. So what is it then that's not quite clicking for you?
Yeah, honestly, staying up. That it's a consolidation season, isn't it? The step up from League One to the Championship is absolutely massive. And this season has to be we need to stay up. As of next season, there's huge financial differences between the Championship and League One with all this TV deal, the way Sky is changing in terms of game streaming, etc. So staying up this season is possibly more important than ever for a team first coming up. So that has to be the target. In terms of where we're at the moment relating to that, I mean, there have been a lot of individual errors that have cost us goals at really important times. And in this league, you don't get away with that as much as you would have in League One. And I think we probably got away with a few in League One, but here we've just been punished every single time. Defensively, we've looked a little bit frail. I think it's a little bit more settled now. But I mean, last time out against Preston North End, we have Marlon Pack, who is our central midfielder club captain, playing at centre-back, even though they were two other fit centre-backs not starting. So it gives you a bit of an idea of how up in the air things are a little bit. We've struggled quite a bit in front of goal. I'm not actually sure how that represents in front of our goals scored, but in terms of goals scored versus chance creation, we've really been missing that number 9. Like Husseini Yengi has struggled a little bit, who's been sort of, since he came back from a calf injury, our main number 9, because Coly Bishop had heart surgery in end of July, start of August. And we weren't expecting him back until the new year. And then he came on as a sub against Preston North End. So that took us all off guard. So, yeah, I mean, the middle half of the pitch, I'd say we've been pretty decent. It's just defensive third and the attacking third, which are slightly important in football, where we've been lacking a little bit. But yeah, I'd say I'm 50-50 on whether we'll stay up or not at this point. I'm not completely resigned to it, like I know some fans are, but I've seen enough there, and there's been a couple of teams around us I've been honestly quite unimpressed by. We've just got to pick up results. We play teams on their bad days. So Oxford, for example, they've done pretty well so far this season, but we caught them in an off day and we still only got a point from the game. And I think that's what's going to make or break our season, is when we play teams that don't have their greatest day, we've got to get more than a point.
Yeah, I would say as an outsider looking in, I think we find that the midweek games really dictate where we finish in a season, and we are so poor midweek, home and away. And that's usually scuppers us any hope of a playoff push. And last season, nearly worse. But yeah, I would say, so the distance getting down to Portsmouth of a midweek game could make a real difference. So in terms of Blackburn now, in terms of, have you any thoughts on how we're getting on? Any memories from playing Rovers? Obviously, it's been a little while since we've played, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of memories playing you, I think my first ever game at Fratton Park was against Blackburn. So this made me feel really old. I actually looked at the starting 11 of our two teams. So this, I feel old now, but this is year 2000. So I was 9 when my dad first took me. 2-2 draw in Div 1. And I mean, your listeners are probably going to be more interested in the Blackburn lineup than the Portsmouth lineup. But players like Henningberg, David Dunn, Gary Flitcroft. I mean, I cannot tell you how old it made me feel when I saw that Mark Hughes was playing, because I've just always thought of him as a perpetually quite elderly man, middle-aged man. And I didn't realise that I'd seen him play live, and that's just aged me. But 2-2 draw. I mean, we had Linvoy, we had Darren Moore playing for us. I mean,
nice, right?
I'm getting on. It's really not good, but yeah. So my first game was actually watching us against you. So this is the first time we've played you in sort of Div 1 level football for something like 20 years, isn't it? Something silly like that. We played you in the Premier League and League 1.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Yeah, 23 years since we last played you in Div 1. So
that'll be that season then, yeah.
Yeah, it would be that season, later in that season. So in terms of how Blackburn are getting on this season, I mean, I'm guessing your expectations for the season are playoff related, I'm assuming. I don't know, you might want to correct me there, but from the outside, that's what I would have been expecting. And I guess you're there or thereabouts. I haven't obviously seen individual performances, but at this stage in the season, it seems so congested because no team's really, consistently doing the business. I mean, Sunderland they looked incredible against us, and then they went and lost to Plymouth. And then, it's just so unpredictable. So you're there or thereabouts. And I mean, I wouldn't mind being in 9th at the moment, to be completely honest with you. What's your sort of perception of the Pompey season so far? What were you expecting from us league table wise?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised. Obviously, I think Ipswich doing what they did last year has kind of skewed everybody's view again of coming up from League One. I look back to when we came up from League One. I thought we were incredibly equipped for going down to League One. We kept a lot of our players. We had a real core of experienced players. And when I looked at your team, it's taken you a while to get back, but you kind of thought, do you know what? You've always felt like you've been there or thereabouts in League One consistently. And some of the teams in League One, when we were there, I felt they were, I think we were competing with Shrewsbury at the time, and you guys were sort of 7th or 8th, and you had people like Conor Ronan, and you always had really good wide players. So I thought, do you know what? To then have teams of that caliber, if you like, for League One, to then make the step, I thought you must have really solidified, and I thought you'd be harder to beat, particularly at home. So I thought you would probably finish, 14th to relegation places. But I'll be honest, I didn't think you'd be the ones adrift. I thought it would be potentially Oxford out of any of them. Obviously, they came up via the playoffs, I think, didn't they? So that's kind of what I was looking at. But then also some of the teams in the Championship that you just see year in, year out you have no idea how they're still there. Teams like Cardiff seem like they've been as poor as they are at the moment for 4 or 5 years. QPR are always one extreme or the other. But yeah, the teams like Cardiff, really. And I just thought, yeah, they've got to go. Plymouth, you never know what you're going to get, really, with Plymouth. They look pretty poor last year. Rooney comes in, you're expecting it to go very wrong. I think they've done okay, haven't they? But yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest. I thought it would have been harder to go to Fratton Park and get results, and it seems like it's not at the moment. I think we would have, if we'd have got you early on in the season and gone and got a draw at Fratton Park, great result. But it seems like you're a little bit softer than I would have expected. But the fact that you've explained about the centre halves, it exactly makes sense then, because that's usually teams coming up from League One have really big, strong centre halves, don't they? And it's not easy to score against them. They might lack at the other end, but if you're lacking a bit in both, that makes sense. Do you think in January you'll go and bolster the squad then?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how much the owners have made. I don't know if they misjudged the size of the step up or underestimated it. Okay. I don't know if I'd want to level that accusation directly. It could be the case. I don't know. But yeah, there was a fan forum last week, 2 weeks ago, where they've essentially come out and said that they will do what needs to be done in January to give us the best chance of staying up. I think the proviso with that is that you could bring anyone you want in January. If you're 9, 12, 15 points adrift, it's probably too little too late. It's kind of closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. And we also have to be aware that other clubs are also going to be doing that. And it's going to be clubs with more financial clout than we have also going to be trying to do the same. So I would expect that to be the case in January. But for players to come in, they've said, players are going to need to come out. Go out of the squad as well. And where that's going to happen is a question mark. I mean, potentially one of the keepers. We've played 3 keepers in the first team so far this year for injury and rotation and sort of performance-related reasons. Centre-back Conor Shaughnessy, who really knows what's going on there. He keeps being about 3 days away from being fit and then being out for another 4 weeks. We were hoping he'd be back potentially for the game against you, and now we've been told today he's out for another 6 weeks. So, I mean, if he's fit at Christmas, maybe he'd go, which would be a big loss because he was kind of our focal point of defence last season. And yeah, we've just struggled with that consistency in terms of centre-back pairings. Last year, Conor Shaughnessy and Regan Poole before he did his ACL. And then we had Riley Towler came in and did a decent job. And then Tom McIntyre briefly came in from Reading before he broke his ankle and got sent off in the first 54 minutes of playing for us, which was an impressive feat. It was like $1,500 per minute or something we'd paid for him for the first 4 months he was at the club.
Brilliant.
But yeah, and then we've come back this season and Poole is a very good, he's a Welsh international, good quality player, but he's struggled a little bit, potentially coming back from fitness. Shaughnessy's been out of the team completely the entire season with injury. McIntyre's had a couple of moments of individual mistakes, and yeah, it's just not quite clicked as yet.
Yeah. So looking ahead to Saturday, obviously it's the first of a 3-game week as the Championship gets really hotting up now towards the Christmas period. How do you think the game will go? How will you line up? Do you think that will have an impact, the fact that you're away from home and there's 3 games in a week? And is there anybody we need to watch out for?
Yeah, I'd imagine we'll play 4-2-3-1. We have been known to occasionally flip to 3 at the back, but I think in games like this where, I mean, realistically, you're going to be obviously going for the win at home against a team in the relegation zone. I think we need a bit of solidity and doing what we know best and what they've spent the most time doing. And more often than not, we play a 4-2-3-1. We did pretty much all of last season and the majority of this season. Okay. In terms of players to watch, Matt Ritchie is just starting to put in the performances we hoped he would do when he came in from Newcastle. And obviously looked like a really big signing when we brought him in and had a really poor start, to be honest with you. I think it was Burnley. We were drawing in the last couple of minutes and he tried a back heel in our defensive 30 yards and tried some stupid trick that cost us a goal and we lost that game and just didn't look very match fit. Last 2 games out, he's looked like a different player. He's struggling to get through the full 90, but his performance has been really good while he's been on the pitch. Callum Lang, came in from Wigan, and to be honest with you, has probably been player of the season thus far. He's the only player that has consistently troubled good championship level defences and has that sort of X factor. He scored a banger of a goal against Leeds. That's probably the highlight, but in pretty much every game, he has been the best, if not one of the best, if not the best Portsmouth players.
Yeah.
And then Josh Murphy on the left, again, finding his gears a bit. We had Abu Kamara on the left last season, who obviously is at Hull now, who was quite one-footed, quite reliant on his dominant foot. Josh Murphy has a little bit more about him in terms of both feet, and has grown into the side and looked dangerous. He was injured at the start of the season too. So it's probably that midfield, that attacking midfield, where I'd say we've got most of our potency. There's just a bit of an Achilles heel elsewhere. Freddie Potts has looked good in defensive mid as well. But yeah, if Coly Bishop is somehow in the starting lineup, that's a game changer. That lifts the side, that lifts the Pompey fans. If you see him in the starting lineup, that brings more to us than just his football, because that is just such a huge boost, sort of mentally, psychologically, to have him back in the side, as well as the fact that he'll do things at number 9 that we've seen missing from other players trying to fill in his slot in terms of attacking the 6-yard box for the low drilled crosses you'll see from us. We've had a lot of players sort of sitting on their heels, not quite getting on the end of those. And Bishop will. So keep an eye out for that.
Great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to really put you on the spot now, Andy. In terms of a prediction, what's your prediction for Saturday's game?
I'm obviously not going to come on here and predict a Pompey loss, however likely it is in the world of reality. I don't like living in the world of reality in the build-up to games. I have to live in it after the game. So beforehand, I'll snap your hand off. I think we will concede. We have looked defensively stronger than I think we are, because we've played, Preston were dreadful, to be frank. And we've played a few teams who weren't great going forward recently. Playing a team further up the table, I'd expect you to score at least one. Having said that, we've got the attacking clout that on their day, they can trouble any defence in the league, as shown by scoring 3 away against Leeds. So let's go with a 1-1 draw. It's a bit of a cop-out, I know. I would absolutely snap your hand off for it right now. But let's go with a 1-1 draw, with the living not quite in the actual reality part of my brain taking over. How about yourself? What's your prediction for the game?
Oh, you put me on the spot there. I'm going to be honest. I think we've played really, really well the last 2 games. The international break, in some ways, came at the wrong time for us, because we'd started to play, really hit some form, but we'd had a real tough run of fixtures in terms of output from the players, so it came at a good time. That said, I'm a bit concerned because Yuki Ohashi's gone away to Japan. He didn't actually come on the pitch, but he was only playing, as we record this on Wednesday, he was playing yesterday at dinner. So he's probably not going to be back in time to feature much. But I think we'll have enough. I do. I'm worried about the other 2 games this week, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I do. I think we'll win. I think we keep quite a few clean sheets as well. But I think it'll probably be 2-1 Rovers.
Yeah. I think if you play the game 10 times, you're going to win it more often than you don't. But if you roll a dice, 2 times out of 6, it doesn't come in one of the likeliest options. So you mentioned the international duty there. That's a good point, actually. Cassini Yengi, who's been starting at 9 in the absence of Coly Bishop, he was playing for Australia in either Qatar or Bahrain. I think maybe Bahrain at the same time. So yeah, he may also not be buzzing to be back in the UK, and may not feature. It depends on Bishop, I guess, as well.
Bizarre time into those fixtures, aren't they?
Agreed.
We've had that with a few players. But yes, right. Thank you very much, Andy. Do you want to just remind everyone where they can find you? Because honestly, our fans love popping across to opposition podcasts, not just if we win, but just to get a flavour of what the other team thought of the game. It's always good to get that insight. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So on Twitter, we are at PO4, like the postcode PO4 cast, CAST, which is a terrible name for a pod, because when you put it into Google, it just says, "Did you mean podcast?" And then none of the PO forecast stuff comes up. We definitely didn't think that through. But PO forecast on Twitter, and you can find us on your standard Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, all of those. And I'm assuming you'll be happy to retweet the episode that you're being a part of as well. So hopefully it'll show up in your feed too for people. But we're very happy to get people listening in. And then, if you fancy a gloat next week, if you do pick up the 3 points, feel free to come and listen to us, have a bit of a post-mortem about the game.
No worries. They will. I'm sure they'll pop across. Right, Andy, thank you very much. And like Andy said, we'll be on our socials. We'll put, obviously, this information, but we'll put the information where you can find Andy's pod and all the information from any episodes if you've not had enough of my ugly mug. But yes, remember to like and subscribe. It does make an absolutely massive difference to the algorithm. I don't understand the algorithm properly. I'm not going to pretend, but I know it makes a big difference. So, yeah, thank you very much. And we'll be back on Tuesday morning with the latest Blackburn End Podcast.